Hi guys, and welcome to today's Money Honeys video. If you are joining me for the first time, my name is MelissaJoyce and I do videos during the week that are product reviews, and then on the weekend I do some very money-focused videos. I call these ones MoneyHoney Buzz because I sort of talk about one topic per week, but I have also done a series on building a firm financial foundation, which is my Money Honeys pathway. So if you have not watched that yet, feel free to watch this video all the way through, but I will also put a link to the playlist for my Money Honeys series down below, so if you want to go and watch that, it might also be of interest to you. Today we're going to talk a little bit about meal planning and your food budget. I'm going to tell you a little bit about things that throw me off of my food budget, and I will also talk about two resources that I have used and are tried and tested for me that you might wish to check out. I really wanted it to be three because three seems like a nice number, but I wasn't going to go throwing a third into here if it was something that I had not used quite a bit myself and felt comfortable recommending to you. When you talk about your food budget, it's something that people often ask a lot of questions about. How much are you spending on your food budget? How much should I be spending on my food budget? And I think the reason for that is there is a lot of variability in it. Like, it is something that you need to spend money on every month, every week. But there's just so much more variability in it than something like, for example, transportation, where you probably have your car payment is fixed, you have no control over the price of gas, and there's a certain amount of commuting that you may need to do for your life. Other things like clothing, you know, they're once in a while kind of purchases. But food is something that really varies week to week. And not only that, it varies on how many people there are in your household, how old the people are. Like, if you have little kids, they don't eat as much as like teenagers. And also it depends on where you live. Here in Canada, food is more expensive than in the States. But if you live somewhere like Alaska or Hawaii, you have huge food costs. And then also it depends, like, are you vegetarian? Do you eat meat? How much are you buying expensive products? So there is always a hunt for lowering the food budget. Meal planning and food budgets are very personal, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what works for me. I do not have kids, so I don't have a family. Generally, I'm either cooking for one or for two if my boyfriend and I are having a meal together. And for me, what I look for is food that is not processed. I actually like cooking. I don't always want to spend a lot of time doing it, so I don't mind if things are quick and easy, but I also don't necessarily want to plan to be pulling frozen things out of boxes and cooking them in the microwave or the oven. I like there to be fresh food involved, and as much as possible have a focus on like real vegetables, but also have protein. So I was vegetarian for about 10 years, so I don't mind meals being vegetarian, but I do want there to be some protein there because I find that that is what I consider healthiest. Also, I try not to have meals that include too much pasta, rice, or bread. I'm trying to cut back on having too many of those kinds of carbs and get my carbohydrates more from vegetables and fruit. I'm not opposed to them. I'm not somebody who's cutting them out of my diet, but it does make a difference because things like pasta and rice tend to be inexpensive and filling things that keep your food budget down. And I'm trying not to use as much of those, so it does mean that my food budget is perhaps a little bit higher. My pitfall is that if it's either going to take me too long to cook something, or if I don't know what I'm going to make, I am more likely to order takeout or go out for dinner, which just is really hard on the budget and also not good for being healthy. So I find that I am somewhere on a scale of mid-range planning, and let me explain that. There are some people who will plan exactly what they're having for dinner every day of the week for 7 days. They buy exactly that, and that's what they have. There are some people who can go to the store, see what's on sale, think about what they like, and buy a whole bunch of ingredients and then figure out what they're going to make during the week. I am also not that person. I find if I plan too much, if life happens and I decide to go out to eat, I decide to see friends, it throws everything off, and then I tend to be a little bit of an all or nothing person, so once things go off track, I need to have some kind of flexibility. On the far other end of things is I can't just buy things and then decide what to have, because I'll find too much stuff is going bad. I'm not that great at knowing how much I need to get and what I'm going to use. What I find works best for me is to plan 4 to 5 meals and get the ingredients for those meals. It gives me 2 nights where I have either leftovers or I'm going out to eat or ordering in, something like that. So there's some flexibility built into what I'm trying to do in terms of meal planning. So when I look for recipes or resources, there's 2 things that I'm looking for. Well, maybe 3 things. First of all, I want the recipe to be interesting. I tend not to be a, meat, potato, steamed vegetable person. I like, curries and Indian food and Vietnamese flavors and things that are a little bit different. I like to have some variety. So I'm always looking for new recipes to try. I'm not the person who's going to be comfortable having, meat, potato, vegetable every night. I am looking for things that have a lot of fresh ingredients in them. I really want vegetables to be a main part of it. I want things that are not a lot of processed ingredients. I don't enjoy that. If I'm going to cook, I want to be cooking from things that are fresh, real ingredients. Finally, third, and this is a big one for me, is I need the ingredients to not be 20 to 30 ingredients long. And in a lot of cases, it might just be, oh, you use a little bit of this, you use a little bit of that. And it's not that the cooking is complicated, but if you see a recipe where there's some vegetables, some meat, and then 3 or 4 different kinds of herbs and 6 spices, like that's okay if I have those spices, but sometimes I won't. And then a container of spice is $5 to $8. And if there's 3 different kinds of fresh herbs in it, then that's going to cost me $2 to $3 per kind of herb. And I've been trying, you try to do meal planning and then you end up spending $20 per recipe because there's all these extra things added to it. That doesn't do well for me. I want a recipe where it's focusing on a couple of flavors and is pretty flavorful yet simple. So with all that being said, let's get into talking about the 2 things that I'm going to recommend. The first resource that I'm going to recommend are recipes that I find are flavorful and interesting and yet simple. They don't have huge long ingredient lists. And that is Everyday Food, which is a offshoot of Martha Stewart. So currently there are 2 ways that you can get recipes from Everyday Food. The first is that if you Google Everyday Food, or if you go to Martha Stewart's website, which is marthastewartliving.com or marthastewart.com. I'm going to put all the links to everything down below in the description bar. You can see the recipes there and you can sort them on the website by perhaps main ingredient, by, whether it's a lunch or a dinner, that kind of thing. And you can go there and see a lot of the recipes. And I find that for the most case, the recipes are maybe 5 or 6 ingredients long, with a couple of those ingredients being, things that you probably have in your pantry. So you're not buying a lot of ingredients to make one meal. I really found these recipes to start with back when they used to have a magazine. They used to have these little magazines sitting by the checkout, and I really liked them. There was one per month, and they had just good recipes inside. I have kept all the ones that I bought because I enjoy these so much. But I do believe all of these recipes you can still find on the website. It's just I used to be somebody who really liked sitting down and reading a magazine, and they would have focuses on different ingredients, things like that. But I found that those recipes were all things that had few ingredients, were interesting and flavorful, and didn't leave you with a lot of leftovers either. So it wasn't like, 2 tablespoons of canned beans and you're thinking, okay, well, what am I going to do with the rest of all these canned beans I have now? They're all good, easy, fast, simple, not too many ingredient recipes. The other way you can find these recipes, if you prefer watching a bit of entertainment, is they do have a YouTube channel. I will put a link to that down below. I believe it's Everyday Food with Sarah Carey. In any case, even with that, there's different playlists where you can sort to find different recipes, and I would really recommend Everyday Food. The magazines no longer exist, but I do believe if you go to the bookstore, there are still some Everyday Food recipe books. I think there are 2 of these. I just own one of them, but I think I gave one of them a number of years ago to my sister as well as a gift. If you can get these from your library, do that. As much as possible, I would recommend library borrowing over buying if you are trying to control your budget. As an example, they have some beautiful soups that are 3-ingredient soups with a couple of suggestions for toppings. You know, here is a beautiful looking pasta that only has 6 ingredients. My book is even coming apart a little bit because I've used this quite a lot. It is a good resource and it is something that I would recommend. I should also say with my meal planning, what I tend to do is plan dinners and then buy some things that I know that I like having for lunches or have leftovers as my lunches. I tend to sort of buy some fruit and some yogurt for my breakfast. For my lunches, I will either have leftovers or sometimes I will buy those bags of salad that come prepackaged with some toppings and some dressing. I know it's not the cheapest way of doing things, but it's nicely portioned. But with a lot of these recipes, you're going to have leftovers if you are not in a 4-person family. And so that's what I will often do, is just have the leftovers the next day for lunch. The next resource that I'm going to recommend is a paid resource. But I've used it for 2 years and I really like it. So it takes quite a bit for me to recommend something that you have to spend money on as something to help your budget, but I do believe in this. So there is a service called Fresh 20, which is a weekly meal planning service. Basically, you get a set menu, although there are a number of different menus that you can choose from, and I'll get into that more in a second. And they send you 5 recipes for the week. Again, I like having 5 recipes. It gives me some flexibility. It means that you can plan in there for a night out or a leftover night or perhaps one of your favorite recipes. Pretty sure it's 5 recipes, yeah. And they do a good job of having the same ingredients carry over to different meals so that you don't end up with a lot of leftovers, and yet it's good for your budget. So the main idea of Fresh 20 is that you have a pantry of some staples, and it's things like your olive oil, maybe some pasta, maybe some rice, that kind of thing, a couple of spices, and they'll tell you like these are the pantry ingredients, and it's not a huge amount that you should keep on hand. And then every week you will buy 20 fresh ingredients, hence Fresh 20, that you make the meals with through the week. What I really like about this service is I find the meals to be really good, or at least the ones that I have used. They are interesting, they are flavorful. There has not been one yet where I sort of had it and thought, ew, I don't like this. They are good. They will give you suggestions for replacements of things. I am not much of a fish eater. I don't like shrimp, and there will always be a suggestion if they have a shrimp dish about, you know, replacing with chicken or something like that. And it's also very seasonal because it is a menu sent out per week and there's fresh ingredients. The ingredients are very seasonal. So I found that I've tried things I wouldn't otherwise try, and I just quite like it. I believe it is about $100 to get a year of it. However, once you have access to it, they will send you a menu every week, but you also have access to all of their archives for the type of meal that you have chosen. And let me get into that. There's a few different kinds of meals that you can choose, and I'm not going to remember all of them. I'll put the link once again to the website down below so you can go and look. Because I often cook either just for myself or for my boyfriend and I have got the 4-2 menu. So it is basically cooking for 2 people, which works out really well for me because I'm not always making meals for 4 and then having a huge amount of leftovers. It's just a perfect amount. So I really liked that, and all the recipes are geared for if you are a person cooking for 1 or 2, and if you're cooking for 1 then you have leftovers the next day, that you don't have a whole bunch of leftover ingredients at the end. You use them up during the week. There is one for regular family, 4 to 6 servings. There is low carb. I believe there is paleo. There's a couple of other ones as well. So if you have a specific diet that you're sticking to, that you can get that specific menu. I say that I don't like recommending paid resources, but what you can do is go to their website and request a sample menu. They will send you a sample menu and you can try using that menu for a week and see if you like it. You do get a shopping list as well as your 5 recipes, and they will also tell you what prep you can do as soon as you get your groceries home to make cooking easier throughout the week, which is also something that I appreciate. So those are the 2 products that I wanted to recommend, or the 2 resources that I wanted to recommend. If you are looking for a way to sort of kickstart your meal planning or some different resources, those are things that I have found I go to, is I either go to Everyday Food, find maybe 4 or 5 recipes that I want to make during the week, which are not overboard with ingredients, or I will look to a menu from Fresh 20 and follow that for the week. Both of them give me a chance to cook with fresh ingredients that are just not too overcomplicated and not too expensive, that are seasonal, because you can also pick seasonal things from everyday food. And it also gives me the flexibility that I'm not setting 7 days of what I exactly have to do. It gives me structure and yet flexibility at the same time. If you liked this video and you would like more sort of ways to work within your food budget or other recipe kinds of things, I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek here. I am planning some food videos. I'm in the very early stages of planning some recipe videos, but it's something that I would very much like to do soon because I really do enjoy cooking and I have some ideas of some unique things that I could share. But if you like these things about food budgets, ideas about how to look at different categories of your budget and plan or reduce spending, then give this a thumbs up. I would love to know if you liked this video. If you have comments about resources that you use or how you do meal planning, what works for you, and also just even if you want to share how much you tend to spend per week on groceries, put all of that in the comments below. I respond to every comment that I get, and it's also great if you guys can talk to each other about these things. And if you have not subscribed but would like to do so, you can subscribe on the button, which is probably down here if you're on a laptop, or click on my face at the end of this video. And that is everything for today. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Have a wonderful day. Bye.